Alright, so I figured it was time for another video log, and the only thought I could come up with to talk about was the concept of God in sci-fi. At least it seems to permeate sci-fi, if that makes any sense. I'm just trying to think of why so much sci-fi seems to be atheistic in nature, and yet, I don't know, kind of counter that with some good examples of not atheism in sci-fi. Now, I'm not here to settle any agendas or whatever. It's not how I roll. It's just something to think about. Now, the first example that comes to mind is Star Trek. Star Trek, to my knowledge, was created by a humanistic atheist, Gene Roddenberry, and part of his intention for the show was that it was at a point when nobody believed in God anymore. And he failed in that. Because Kirk's a monotheist, probably a Jew because he's played by William Shatner. Spock's a pantheist. I don't know Bones' religious standing, but I'll just assume he's Baptist because of Forrest Kelly. And of course, at least two of the movies touched on the idea of God. I really liked the part in the motion picture when Bones says, "We create God in our own image." That was very true in many cases. And then, of course, I haven't seen The Final Frontier, and I've heard it sucked, but I did see the final clip where Kirk says, maybe God isn't out there, maybe God's in here. I don't know what to think about that. Not what he said about God, but just the fact that even though Gene Roddenberry tried to make all of the characters on his show atheists, he failed. Kind of amuses me, actually. There are other examples. Okay, Star Wars. Now, I know people make a big deal about the fact that Star Wars is not sci-fi, it's fantasy. I disagree with that, because it has sci-fi elements, which makes it sci-fi. Now, everybody knows that Star Wars has the Force, and there's a lot of debate about how exactly that works. But then you get roll around to the prequel trilogy and, well, they almost take the entire religious experience out of the Force, which is weird. I don't want to talk about that. Let's just move on. X-Men. Now, I found X-Men religious content really interesting. Now, I'm probably going to get blasted for this, but I haven't read a single X-Men comic. I watched the animated series for a while, and then I saw the movies. That makes me a fat nerd, doesn't it? Oh well. But Nightcrawler's speech about people's perception of things, that was one of my favorite parts of X2. All one time I saw it. Don't worry, I'm planning to see it again, but that's not the point. X-Men's really interesting when it comes to religion, because the driving force of the show, the series, is the evolution of man. And I haven't done much research into this, but there's quite a few religious affiliations that are very anti-evolution. So the fact that they make many of their characters theistic evolutionists, that intrigues me, actually. Really an interesting twist if you think about it. But, oh, here's one of the strangest trivia bits you'll ever hear. Superman is Methodist. That's right. Clark friggin' Kent was raised in a Methodist church. I didn't know that until recently. I found a website with a whole bunch of superheroes and their religions. Why anyone would make a website of that, I don't know, but it amuses me. So yeah, all that is to say, even though there are religious elements, I don't know if I want to use the word religious, but there are elements of believing in God in sci-fi. But for the most part, it definitely seems to be an atheistic medium. Right? And medium's the wrong word. An atheistic genre. That's the right word. And I don't really know why. Best guess I have is just so many religions that are opposed to science to degrees that atheists are the only ones left. Nearly the only ones left to create science fiction. That's a pretty poor assessment, but just leave your thoughts, in the comments. I like doing this. Anyway, that's about all the time I have. Holy crap, that was a gay goodbye. How about this? Live long and prosper.